It was centered in northern Israel, where prosecutors allege a broker and a doctor treated the harvesting of kidneys like picking parts from used cars.
The object was the kidney. In order to get the object, you needed the person, and you would traffic him in order to do that.
Gilad Erlich is one of the prosecutors who was able to shut down essentially a human trafficking ring that sent both Israeli patients, all Jews, and their Israeli donors, all Arabs, to the Ukraine, where an Israeli doctor would perform the surgery. The broker is in prison, the doctor in the Ukraine avoiding prosecution. The allegation that they preyed on illiterate, poor, and desperate people for one purpose: to get their kidneys.
Editors of the Swedish daily Aftonbladet newspaper say they had no idea the report would stir such controversy when it was published in the paper's culture pages. It was, they insist, merely giving a voice to Palestinian families who believe Israel may have harvested the organs of their dead loved ones. Freelance journalist Donald Boström first published the story in a book in 2001. Then it passed unnoticed by the Israeli authorities. Now it's caused a diplomatic storm.
And welcome to another talk about Palestine in Snak om Palæstina. And today we're going to talk about the ultimate kind of racism and contempt for humanity, when people are worth absolutely nothing, when they're solely looked upon as a product, when people, or rather their bodies, are turned into spare parts, and in this case to serve the Israeli population. So in Israel, organ trafficking was a practice or a business that was even legal in the apartheid state until 2008. And today we're going to talk to the renowned and experienced Swedish journalist Donald Boström. So welcome and thank you for joining our program.
Thank you.
In 2009 you wrote a famous article, Våra söner plundras på sina organ, or in English, Our sons are being robbed from their organs, in the Swedish newspaper Aftonbladet. And it was about organ trafficking in Israel. It was an article that caused major diplomatic crisis between Sweden and Israel, but it also helped to make the practice illegal in the colonial state. But firstly, I'd like to ask you, you traveled extensively in the Middle East and spent several periods in Palestine. Can you tell me a bit about your professional background and your encounter with the Palestinians and your work in general?
Yeah, like you said, I'm a journalist and photographer, so that's what I'm, my title, photojournalist, which means I travel around the world, more than in Sweden actually. Since my first assignment abroad was to meet Yasser Arafat in Tunis after he fled from Beirut. And since he was the first assignment I have outside, people consider me as the expert on Middle East and on Palestinian and Israel conflict. So which means they call me all the time and ask me to go there. So today I've been there at least 50 times on assignment for different media. Okay. So it's not only, so that's kind of my specialty and beside that, my next specialty is East Africa and then the rest of the world, but especially Israel-Palestine conflict, yes.
So you met Yasser Arafat several times, on several occasions?
Yeah, more than one, yeah, 2-3 times, kind of, yeah.
Okay, but to jump right into the subject of today, there's a small clip I'd like us to see. It's actually an interview with you and the Israeli doctor Mordechai Kedar some years ago. He was recently actually on television, saying that the Palestinians are worse than animals and they don't deserve to live. So you had an interview with him on the channel RT. I'd like to show a little clip from there.
The fact is, you killed these young men without taking them to court. We call it murder. It's still a fact. You brought them away, made an autopsy against the mother's will, and you brought them back in the middle of the night. So whatever happens, so that you have been conducting a lot of violation to international law with these men. If they've been stolen by the organs, I don't know.
This is not correct. This is what they told you. You have no way. Do you speak Arabic? Can you check them? Can you go after and to check their story? You were misled probably, like many other journalists, Western journalists, who are manipulated by the Palestinians time and again.
Do you mean the men were never killed? Do you mean the men were never
could be that he died from
autopsy?
No, there is a possibility that he died from for car accident or from something else. What I'm saying is that the Bollywood, what we call the film industry of the Palestinians, look, they sometimes take stretchers with dead people on them, and after the camera goes away, the dead people jump from the from the stretcher, and they start walking and running away.
How did you come across the story of the article you wrote in 2009 about the cases where organs were taken from killed Palestinians in the West Bank and most likely were used as spare parts for Israelis? And were you surprised that the whole thing created so much of a stir as it did?
If you take it from the very, very beginning, I worked a lot, like I told you, in Jerusalem, in the West Bank, and Israel. So I heard the rumors, and then finally UN people come and told me, actually, this period, a lot of the young Palestinian men throwing stones to the occupation soldiers, they are shot and they are brought back by a military vehicle into Tel Aviv and Abu Kabir, the Forensic Institute. 5 days later, normally, they are brought back to their village in the middle of the night for the funeral. And most of them, many of them, were ripped up open, or it seems to be missing their eyes or something. So all over the West Bank and in Gaza, the family believed that the organs were missing or stolen. So they told me, since you're a journalist, can you please investigate? Can you please research? I was busy, so I told no 2-3 times, but then finally I attended one of those nights. It was a funeral in the night, like I wrote about in the article. And we've succeeded to take pictures, actually, of the actual young boy, the 19 years old Bilal Ahmed Ghanem. And so that's how it started. And what we didn't know at that time, that was an extensive, already at that time, an extensive thing that going on at the Forensic Institute. They were taking body parts from everyone they could take from. At the Forensic Institute. So this guy I was debating against, he said that the Palestinians are compulsory liars. In this case, he knew about it. The government knew about it. The media knew about it. Very many people in Israel knew about it. And those representatives of the Israeli government, they were compulsory liars. It shows later on. And because this is very interesting, and this is also answering your next question. Yeah, I was surprised that it had the avalanche of reactions. I was, of course, ready for criticism, etc., etc. You're a liar, you're an anti-Semite, etc. But like I told you, in Israel they knew about it, but it was a very, very well kept secret. And they tried to keep it secret inside, just debating on Hebrew, just writing about it in Hebrew. But since it started leaking out from the Forensic Institute, from those people trying to stop it themselves, it leaked out to me, so I could write about it. And for the first time, it leaked this very well sensitive, extremely sensitive question or issue leaked out through the rest of the world. And that made the Israeli government crazy and angry, and that's the whole explosion started, which was kind of good, because then the rest of the truth could be revealed in the aftermath.
Yeah, because the worst thing was not that Israel were trading organs and taking them from dead Palestinians, but the worst thing was actually that you wrote about it.
Yeah, and that's, I met even the Swedish parliamentarian said, you are the guy that wrote the disgusting article. And then I asked them back, what do you think is the most disgusting? To steal organs from those young men, in most of the cases, or that I'm telling about it. So like you said, yeah, they think you should be quiet, you should be loyal to Israel, you should let them do whatever they want. So you're right, yeah. I was the bad guy. Like, you know, it's also kind of usual that the messenger boy is the one who get killed.
Yeah,
not the perpetrators.
In the beginning, you were even backed by the Swedish Prime Minister, who refused to apologize to Israel
Yeah.
So it created a diplomatic crisis to begin with.
Yeah, I think Israel is kind of used to, if they raising their voices, people ask them for excuses. And they, first of all, they attacked me. I said, no, this is correct. This is the truth. You should be the one who answered the questions from the families. So then they went to the newspaper, asked them to retract the article, etc., etc. And they told them the same thing. No, this is irrelevant questions. So in the third step, they went to our government and the prime minister, the minister of foreign affairs, actually. And he said, in this country is democracy. I'm not the one who chooses what to be printed. That's the case of the editor-in-chief. So, and then he refused to visit Israel. So the next thing in this whole bizarre affair was that there was a political crisis between Israel and Sweden. On a higher level, and almost also for European Union, because at that time he was Minister of Foreign Affairs for European Union as well. So the whole thing was just crazy. And in the whole time, the Israel government knew what was right and wrong, and they knew I was right.
But the relationship normalized again.
Yeah, I mean, no one, I mean, in diplomacy, they always avoid crisis and animosity, of course. So by the time they tried to normalize the relationships, of course, and the Swedish government at that time, and also the next government after the election, it was a new government in Sweden at that time, they actually worked for good relation with the Palestinians as well as in Israel. So yeah, it normalized.
I remember when it happened, and as a Palestinian, I was thinking, yes, maybe Sweden will be the frontier of the European Union, and they will lead the way to boycott Israel being a totalitarian state and apartheid and the way they treat the Palestinians. But unfortunately, like all the other times, things, they calm down and normalize.
Yeah, you're right. And when it comes to this story, we are talking about organ harvesting now. Then we can talk later on about organ trafficking. It's two different lines to receive or catch organs for the need. I mean, the need is very dramatic needs, but the very few organs to have, because you cannot bury a person in Israel with something missing. Maybe the same thing in Palestine, because if there is missing a body part, you're not considered to be buried in the proper way. So very few people are giving their organs. So there are two ways: organ harvesting and organ trafficking. And the government at that time actually, since of course there is an opposition in Israel, we don't want you to steal organs. There was a debate in Knesset. Actually, I have the protocol. There was also individuals, there were doctors, there were very researchers and different levels. They wrote to the government, please stop it. They wrote to the Minister of Health, please stop it. The government actually had an own investigation. You maybe heard about it. I wrote about it later on. It's called Sigelsson Report, because it was performed by Dr. Sigelsson, an Israeli judge. And it confirmed everything, that this organ harvesting was taking place illegally, etc., etc. So they classified that report. I succeeded to have a copy, actually. So all the time it was just a game, it was just a play, and I was the victim, because so many people threatened me to kill me, destroy my life, you know, the whole usual things. And now my point. That's why European Union, for example, like you said, and other countries and other governments, they were insecure. They believed the narrative of the Israeli government. They believed the narrative of the perpetrators. And that was also kind of bizarre, because I was just a journalist, and those were the government. So they choose to believe the narrative of the government. It cannot happen, because they consider Israel as a democratic country, and the democratic country cannot actually steal organs, because that's impossible. And if you claim that they do, you have to be either an idiot or an anti-Semite. So to be on the secure side, many people choose to believe it cannot have happened.
Still today, they seem to believe the Israelis, even though the whole world can see what's happening in Gaza. So I'm not surprised they wouldn't believe you then. And even now, when everything is so obvious to everyone, to the whole world, and they still choose the Israeli narrative. So nothing has changed in that matter.
No, it haven't. But later on, I mean, I was writing the article in August 2009, as you said, and the first thing the Israeli government did was to reject the accusations and refuse it's ever happened. They told it's never happened, and since you claim it did, it's a blood libel, etc., etc. But then in December, 3 months later, just a few days before Christmas, the head of the Forensic Institute, Yehuda Hiss, he was the one actually leading the organ thefts, the organ harvesting. He was recorded in an interview by 2 female researchers, kind of bragging about stealing organs from Arabs, etc. And that was broadcast in Channel 2 in Israel. So after 3 months refusing it happened, it was actually proved. The guy himself admitted we did, that's what we did. And then the day after, the army confessed, said yes, admitted, and then the Minister of Health admitted, etc., etc. And then we have the classified report, and then we have the reports from the Knesset, etc. And then the doctors, researchers, so everybody admitted and confessed. But it took 3 months, and then they switched it into, okay, we did, but not very little. We did some small things in the 90s. No, then we stopped. But the truth was, it started in 1988 and continued to 2012. I was still the bad guy, so they start twisting instead of the correct thing, like the Israeli soldiers were shooting and kill the Palestinian young boys or men, bringing them to Abu Kabir. In many cases, they took the organs. That was the correct thing, the proved things, admitted things, documented things. Instead, they said, Donald Boström said that the Israeli soldiers are actually killing those young men in order to steal the organs. That was a totally dramatic, different things. It means they were kind of hunting like an animals. And they didn't need that because there were so many bodies coming to the Forensic Institute. So they didn't need to kill anyone for anything. They just killed them because there was a battle. They were fighting.
So the West Bank and Gaza, they were actually a fabric of organs for the Israelis.
Kind of, yes. I mean, they were trying, and they were not only stealing organs from the Palestinians. They were stealing organs from everyone. It could be a tourist or a guest worker or Israelis, anyone coming into the Forensic Institute. They checked up the body, what is possible to use. They have several purposes for the organs. And after the check, they knew what could be possible to use, and then they offered it to those people who had asked for it.
I remember I even read a story some years ago. It was an Israeli newspaper, actually. It was about a Jewish woman. She went to the hospital with her husband. He felt ill. And when she came back, he was dead. When she retrieved the body of her husband, she could see that he had stitches in his chest. And they found out that he was missing his heart. And it was one of the first incidents that was written about. Yeah. Do you remember that story?
Yeah, very well. It was, I think, 40 years ago, maybe 1988 or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was waiting at the hospital after the stroke. The man suffered from a stroke. And again, finally, the doctors admitted, yes, we took his heart for heart transplantation. It should be considered to be the first heart transplantation in Israel. Yeah, later on, they made a deal. She got money for it if she didn't sue them in court, etc., etc. Yeah, so it started very, very early, yes.
So Israel has for many years been the center of organ trade, and isn't that so?
There's many centers, actually. If we switch to organ trafficking, what we were talking about now was there is one forensic institute in Israel. It's state-run. They perform organ harvesting, stealing organs from people without
consent.
Yeah, from consent from families, etc., etc. The other line, so to speak, is organ trafficking. We believe that it started almost in the same time, 87, 88, by kind of private entrepreneurs, or today we call them mafia. They could offer. I have followed some cases from Bellison Hospital when there is a case from a woman, 60 years old lady. We can call her Sarah. When the doctor said, "You are going to die. Your kidneys are too sick, and we don't have any organ donors for you, but we can solve it in another way. We can buy a kidney from a marginalized, many times Palestinian refugees, etc., etc." So that's a trafficking line, and then they actually find those seller. They have the buyer, and in this case, Sarah told the doctor, "Yes, I will do it. $300,000 I will pay if you find a donor, if you find one who will sell." So one guy, Victor, I interviewed him actually. He said yes. Then we call them flying doctors because they never perform it in Israel. What we know, they fly to a third country. In this case, into Istanbul. 2 teams of doctors. We know the name of the doctors, Israeli doctors who don't have a very much moral. So in one room they make the surgery to bring out the kidney. In the next room they give the kidney to another team who actually give, in this case, the lady the kidney. And that's a big business all over the world. So it's not really correct to say that Israel is the center. It's extensive and it's going on, but we believe it's at least in 50 countries in the world, the same thing. Because the demand of kidneys especially is so high, so it's kind of panic all over the world for kidneys.
Also, both the CNN, the Haaretz, and Al Jazeera, they have been reporting about this organ trafficking and this whole organ business in Israel on several occasions. And I remember there was these times you saw these interviews or the reports they also did on the scene, but it's like it disappeared again. And we didn't hear much about it afterwards.
נוגעים, משאירים שלם את החייל, מאוד חשוב, אבל לוקחים מאחרים. ממי? אז עכשיו השאלה מי, ותדמיינו ממי לוקחים. בתקופות מסוימות לקחו מפלסטינאים, ואחר כך זה היה עולים חדשים, עובדים זרים.
I know you also had a close cooperation with the Israeli pathologist and Army Colonel Chen Kugel.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Maria Weiss about also working together on exposing the organ industry in Israel.
Yeah, that's correct. Especially Chen Kugel, he was very, very brave. He was actually, during the time, the second person under Yehuda Hiss at the Forensic Institute. And he had the moral saying, this is not good, we cannot do it. This is not what we can do to people. So he was trying to stop it for a while, but he actually suffered from threats as well. So finally, he had to leave the place. He couldn't stay at the Forensic Institute, but continue to recede. He leaked to Israeli media. The biggest newspaper, Yodot Aranot, wrote about it at least 2 times in big articles. Before I did, actually. So that's also why it's absurd to claim that my story is false, because the Israeli media already wrote about it.
She even wrote a book about it, Weiss, on their dead bodies, where she explains how she witnessed herself, how they would take the skins from Palestinians, and they even had a skin bank, where they used the Palestinians' skin for especially Israeli soldiers who'd been wounded in battle or something.
That's correct. Yeah, that's how it started. It started with, according to Yehuda Hiss, we started to take the skin from the backside of the legs and then everything else. And then it continued with more and more body parts. of course, the corneas, heart valves, and then with lungs, the brains, the hearts, inside the stomach, bones, almost everything. They need it for 3 or 4 different purposes. So, but they started with the skin, and they continue with the skin, of course. And today, it says that Israel had the world's largest skin bank.
And they were all Palestinians who they shot during the Intifada or during the daily occupation?
Yeah. Those who I investigated, yes. When it comes to harvesting, when it comes to trafficking, I interviewed 2 of those people who sold a kidney. And those, let's call them mafia guy or private entrepreneur, said, we will buy your kidney. You have 2 kidneys, and they are ignorant, they're not educated, many of those people, and they said, if you get rid of one, will be more healthy. So let's sell it, and you will have a lot of money, and you will be fine. So many of them did, actually, and they have to travel to a 3rd country with those flying doctors. And in some cases, they received the money. In other cases, they did not receive the money. But they are lack of one kidney. And since this is an illegal thing, when you are back with just one kidney, you suffer from what happened, and you have not the right for hospital care because it was something illegal you did. So many of them die later on, etc. So it's a very tragic business, very, very tragic business.
The mayors of 3 New Jersey cities, 2 state legislators, and several rabbis are among more than 40 people arrested in a sweeping corruption investigation that began as a probe into an international money laundering ring that trafficked in goods as diverse as human organs and fake designer handbags.
These complaints paint a disgraceful picture of religious leaders heading money laundering crews acting as crime bosses. They use purported charities, entities supposedly set up to do good works, as vehicles for laundering millions of dollars.
One rabbi is also charged with trafficking kidneys from Israeli donors.
His business was to entice vulnerable people to give up a kidney for $10,000, which he in turn would turn around and sell for $160,000.
New Jersey's governor calls the scale of corruption unfolding simply outrageous.
Something you also mentioned in your famous article is the New Jersey Mafia.
Yeah.
The Jewish New Jersey Mafia. There was rabbis, there was a mayor among them, and city hall members. You point out in your article that there was especially a guy, a rabbi called Levi Rosenbaum, and he told the FBI that he'd been an organ broker for 10 years, and he would sell a kidney in the US for $160,000. A kidney he would have bought in Israel for $10,000. He was a middleman in this kidney mafia in New York. It was a worldwide network of organ hunters and brokers, matching patients, as you said, and donors, and finding doctors who would do the transplant. There was one Israeli who received the kidney transplant through Rosenbaum, who described the rabbi as a very Jewish Orthodox, very religious, and at the same time, he would love to tell dirty jokes. And actually, this guy, he was an inspiration as I did a feature film. It was called Al Medina, where there was a character who was actually trading organs. And Mr. Rosenbaum was, actually I styled and casted him to look completely like him. Also, it was a movie I did during the Syrian war. There was a lot of Syrian refugees being victims to organ trafficking in the camps, both in Lebanon and Jordan. And it was also a movie where I clearly burnt my fingers after I put this character in my film. It made it very difficult for me. And I'd like to show you a little bit of that film.
שלומך? ברוך השם, תודה לאל. תכיר. קולגה שלי, יוסף. הוא מדבר עברית? לא, לא. טוב. תשמע, אני נוסע ביום חמישי לפני השבת. עד אז אני רוצה שהכל יהיה מוכן, ברור? הכל יהיה מוכן.
אל תדאג.
יש אנשים שסומכים עליי, אתה יודע.
אני יודע, שמואל.
יש לי מוניטין לשקול.
אני לא מקלקל לך את זה.
Going back to that New Jersey mafia, you wrote something about that in your article. It was strange the way they had such brief sentences and suddenly the whole story disappeared. We heard nothing more about it. It was like it was closed down.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, some media was mentioned that he was a rabbi, and since they, and even I actually mentioned it once, then we were accused to be anti-Semite because we just mentioned he was a rabbi. We shouldn't have been mentioned. So I think that's why, again, that to be on the secure side, people are quiet and don't continue to tell about it. But just to be concrete, there's some of those victims, let's call them victims, I followed. I met them several times. One of them we can call Victor, that I just earlier mentioned. He was very marginalized. He was poor. Actually more or less living on the street, and one day he was wondering, how can I survive, how can I manage to continue to live? And he read in, again, Yedot Aranotya, an ad saying looking for kidneys. So he called a number, and they made a deal where to do it and where to see, etc. And then he regret himself. He called back, said, no, I don't, this is not thing I want to do. I want to back off from everything. And they told him, no, you cannot, because we would take your kid anyway. So
okay,
they flew to Istanbul, outside Istanbul, to a shady kind of clinic. And when just before the transplantation, before the surgery, he was sure that he will never wake up again. They would take everything from him. But actually, in that sense, he was lucky. He woke up, only the kidney was removed. He actually received $10,000 out of those $300,000. So he was lucky. There is other cases they didn't receive anything. But anyway, he receives his $10,000. He actually went around in the clinic and met the receiver of his kidney, an old Orthodox Jewish lady, 11 children, etc. And they were talking about it. And he told him the story that he went to the hospital. She went to the hospital, and the doctor said, we cannot do anything. You will die. But it was also the same doctors at the hospital gave her the solution. We can illegally buy a kidney for you, and you can buy it from us, and we can transplant. So that's what happened. And this is a big business in many countries at the moment, actually, from marginalized, invisible people. And since they are marginalized and invisible, their organs are so-called also invisible. Nothing happened. They cannot do anything. They just continue to suffer. And I still have contact with these people, some of them, especially the guy I told you about now. And of course, he's still many years after mentally very, very ill. It do something to you. If you do this, something happened to you mentally. And he's suffering still of the PTSD, post-traumatic syndromes. Although he's lucky, he's physically back, fortunately, but mentally he's not.
And to imagine all those Syrian refugees who's been selling their organs, even their eyes, to bring food on the table for their families. As you said, if this guy was traumatized, imagine all the kids and all the people who were traumatized from doing those horrible years of the Syrian massacre. And in many of the incidents, many people died from the operations because the operations were done in very shady surroundings with very bad equipment. Yeah. So they died afterwards. It leads me to the next thing. This organ trafficking, harvesting, business in Israel is most likely happening again. There's many indications that what's going on in Gaza now is part of bringing organs to the Israeli factory of organs. And again, the Palestinians in Gaza, they are the product. There was a Switzerland-based human rights NGO called Euromed Monitor, who stated that the Israeli army have been taking bodies from medical complexes in the northern Gaza Strip including the Al-Shifa medical complex and the Indonesian hospital. The report claimed that Gaza's medical experts found evidence suggesting the absence of organs, including corneas, when the bodies were returned to their families. Have you heard about these incidences?
I heard the accusations and the rumors, so to say, but I haven't heard any evidence. I was interviewed a few days ago, and they were also asking for the evidence. Have anyone taken those bodies and opened them and actually find body parts missing yet? I haven't heard that step, that really proof. I just heard that people believe and think. In my case, before it was proved finally, but I don't know if you have seen any proof yet so far. Because since it's sensitive, it's important to be careful to find the real proof. This time, I haven't actually digged into it very much. Others have done, and but I'm waiting to see what is right or wrong. Yeah.
I didn't find the proof, but there was many indications. There was a doctor called Mohammed Yusuf al-Najjar from the hospital in Rafah City. He said that the bodies arrived in various conditions. Some were intact, others in pieces, and some were also decomposed. Several of the doctors, they were almost certain that the body parts were removed. But also they are working under conditions now. They don't have the equipment, and they are living under daily bombardment. There are other things to take care of, especially saving lives. The conditions to make a professional examination has been impossible to do at this point. I can imagine that in Gaza, how it's completely impossible.
I think it's important they do. During my time, we actually had a plan with the TV team to open the bodies and film to see. There was a doctor ready to reopen the body and by filming. But we didn't need to do it because just before that, everybody confessed and admitted. Even the army. Yeah, first of all, Yehuda Hist said in Israeli television, I stole organs. So we never have the need to do it, but today they just have to do it. I'm just waiting for it, and I just wonder why they haven't done it so far.
Is it something you'd like to look into?
I'm writing 3 books right now, so I'm kind of preoccupied, but maybe after. But there is so many people there already. Everybody have a camera now. They have the mobile telephone. There are a TV team, there are filmmakers, there are journalists. So it shouldn't be a problem. If it really happened, it shouldn't be a problem to do it.
I know you're a journalist and you like to have your sources right, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Do you think it's happening today?
Theoretically, yes, because the need is still there. I mean, and this is not only my words, it's also when I talk to people in Israel, researchers and doctors. I'm sure it stopped at the Forensic Institute because that guy now, the director now, he's one of the whistleblowers fighting to stop it before, and he's now the director. So I'm sure it's not happened at the Forensic Institute in Tel Aviv, but like they say, the Israeli researchers, we believe it happened somewhere else because the demand is still there, but no one have seen it except the trafficking line, of course, but no one else have digged more into it to prove it yet. So it's still there to prove. And for example, the demand and need is huge all over the world. And when I interviewed the president of Eritrea once, before we sat down and performed the interview, he asked me, why did you write about organ harvesting in Israel? And I told him, because it happened. And then he said, why don't you write about the same thing in Bangladesh and other countries? And what he mean, it's all over the place, like Colombia, Istanbul, of course, and many countries, Brazil. So the need, it's so big, so it have to. Otherwise, I mean, people are ready. If they have money, they are ready to buy the kidneys, and the kidneys are there walking around, and there is etc., etc.
Yeah, of course, it's definitely a business. Shady business which is happening many places in the world. But I think what separates this, what's happening in Israel and many of the other places, that you can say poor people more and less, I would not use the word deliberately, but they do it from boredom and go and sell their kidneys in a horrible industry because there's a need. But in this case in Palestine, it seems that when the Israelis go to war, one of the side bonuses from the war is that they can bring their products to their organ fabric and serve the needy Israelis. And this is what makes it, of course, even more horrible. They did not choose to be a product.
Yeah. It's really horrible, of course. And when I was researching some years ago, I mean, the need is a little bit more in some countries, like in Israel, because you cannot touch the body. You have to bury the body totally whole, untouched. So especially if you read the Torah or the Mose book, etc., etc. So that's why in Europe we had around 33% of the population have donation cards saying, I'm a donator. Today, I don't know, but it used to be the same figures. But in Israel, there were 3% of the population. So the need, there's less sellers, less kidneys to take. So that's why you have to find other ways, like trafficking and harvesting. So that's one answer, I think. And like you said, to be a journalist, you have to be careful about the facts. So I'm still happy when it comes to my article in 2009. No one had actually pointed out any line saying this line is not correct. This line is a lie, because everything is actually correct. That's why I'm trying to be careful. But what they did to the rest of the other people around the world saying that Donald Boström write this and this and this and this. They invented lines telling people I have been writing, but I haven't been writing those lines. So that's why I'm still kind of happy that my article is valid, correct, and I will still be careful and correct. So until I see the proof from Gaza, whatever, it haven't happened.
And your article became a very, very important document. Now I've been reading a lot about this subject, especially lately, because I have this interview with you. And I didn't find anything where anyone could put a finger on the factor in your article. They could attack you from other reasons, being an anti-Semite and so on. But that's the usual business. So it became a very important document. And your article was also referred to by several media. I think every time I step over an article or a news report that I find on YouTube, almost all of them refer to your article. So what you did at that time was very important. So can you maybe disclose for us what it had for you, what kind of professional consequences, personal consequences?
Yeah, it was, of course, a difficult time. I mean, even I think Ehud Barak was the prime minister. Yeah, and some other ministers actually personally went out talking about me, and people promised to destroy my life. They promised to kill me, wait outside to kill me, etc. The police was involved. The other was, we will destroy your life in other ways. We will tell all media to never hire you, never buy your articles, since you're an anti-Semite and you're a liar, you're an alien, etc., etc. And the economical consequences was drastic. From one way to next year, my income was reduced with 90%. So I have 10% to survive on. So, I have less toothpaste when I brush my teeth. I have less shampoo when I wash my hair, etc. It was a very difficult time. Fortunately, I survived. I was still popular enough to have the income to eat, but I lost many huge amount of money throughout the years, all year. Still, they are claiming that I'm is a liar. And what else? I was already in the middle of a divorce, so it didn't cause the divorce. It was really ongoing, which means I have difficult to stay anywhere because cars and people were watching my house. The neighbors were scared because people smoking in the cars round the clock was waiting for me. So I was kind of living in my car.
So you've been followed the whole time?
Yeah. I was living in my car or with friends, etc., etc. So it was really, really difficult. And they really promised to destroy my life in many various ways. And yeah, they succeeded in some ways, actually, because many of the main media actually believed the narrative of the perpetrators, although they were the liars. But yeah, it was difficult. But then in the middle of everything, actually, I met my new wife. She offered me a place to live. I could stay and hide. And then one thing led to another. And then, so it was a kind of a happy ending anyway.
What we're witnessing, it seems like how it must have been like during the Nazi regime.
Yeah.
You became a traitor if you did not support the genocide.
Yeah. During the crisis, so to speak, 2009, I went to Israel and I was interviewed by many people, and they said, of course, you're right. Of course, there is organ harvesting, but the thing is, you should be loyal to Israel. That's why we are angry. You should not come outside and tell the world. So that's why. So the loyalty is more important than to stick to what's right and wrong, or to the international laws, the legal rights. And that's back to as with being journalists. I mean, you can have your private opinions, but then you're not a journalist. So if you write about things in a conflict like this, you have to stick to the international laws, the Geneva Convention, etc., etc., to compare what's going on, to judge what's going on. And if we are accepting what's going on, like what Israel doing now in Gaza, our legal system for the world is collapsing. And if the legal system is collapsing, or if we have double standards, but if it's collapsing more totally, we accept some perpetrators. We don't accept Russia to occupy Ukraine, but we accept Israel to occupy Palestine. Then we're in big problem for the world legal system, which we need badly. Otherwise, it will be a very primitive future for the mankind, actually.
I don't have much hope for what's going to happen in the future, because it's a whole system that needs to change. Yeah. And the more they're exposed, the more aggressive, the more vicious they become. So time will tell what's going to happen with mankind.
Yeah, it's a very difficult period. Unfortunately, I mean, for the first time in my life, I think, almost everyone is speaking about how worried they are, afraid for war, for the violence, for the Third World War, etc., etc. And that's why it's important to stop. To choose between right and wrong, to stick to the international law, to even not special treatment for Israel, not special treatment for anyone. I mean, for the first time, I think for the first time in this way, there's a man-made starvation in Gaza. And that's if we accept those actions from governments, the legal system will totally collapse, and then we don't have anything. And then anything can happen. Anything can break out. So, of course, people are worried. Of course, people are afraid for the war. And today, the conflict is the solution of everything. If you don't agree, okay, let's have a war. It should be the other way around. We should look for peace. We should look for dialogue, etc. No one is interesting. Today or yesterday, Sweden entered NATO. It's called a peace organization. Others call it a war organization. Experts evaluate the history of NATO, say yes, they have prevented war sometimes, but they have also caused war other times. So it's kind of 50-50. And also today, media is talking about the solution to use nuclear weapon. Where is the red line for nuclear weapon? It's not there anymore. So it's a really crazy, stupid time, and it's not only you and me. It's, I think most people around the world have the same depressive worries, actually. And then we see how, since we're talking about Israel and Palestine, how Israelis deliberately kill women and children more than ever. They have a kind of world record. They have killed more children than the United States succeed to kill in Afghanistan for 20 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Twice as many after a few months than in Ukraine after 2 years. And it's deliberately. So it's a very, very clear war crime, of course, and seems to the major mainstream media accept it so far. And I recall the Vietnam War, the same thing in the beginning. The United States was bombing Vietnam, children, women, in extensive bombings, the Christmas bombings in Hanoi, etc., etc. And for years, it was accepted by media and politicians and governments. It took many, many years. And finally, they said, okay, we have to stick to the legal order in this world. And it switched it, and the opinion in United States, Sweden, other places succeeded to stop it. And we're not there yet, but hopefully this action now have the good side that it's waking up people. So this is not the way we can be to each other on this planet. We have to go for peace instead of war.
I can only say that what you've been doing with your work has been a big contribution to the Palestinian cause. And as a Palestinian, I have to say I'm very grateful for your work and for your sacrifice.
Okay, thank you.
As you describe yourself, life turned into become uneasy for you after all this happened. And maybe it also even has an effect on your professional life today.
Just a few days ago, again, the biggest morning paper on the editorial side wrote how I was a liar, how I was spreading the anti-Semitic myth, etc. Still, since they knew it was true. So yeah, it affected me. But on the other hand, I have also more friends than before. So it's on both sides. And the important thing is to choose between right and wrong. And in this debate, I was waiting for this debate about that Israel is actually occupying Palestine, it's actually colonizing. It's already from the very, very beginning an illegal action from this state of Israel. They have not right to do it. And there is also many, many settlers and others who want to throw out the Palestinians in the sea or in the desert or Sinai or in Jordan. Not only Islamists want to throw Jewish people in the sea, it's the other way around. And that's missing in the debate. So we have to be, there's no balance. And we knew that since years and decades. But it, like in Vietnam cases, it can switch and turn around to something good, yeah.
And hopefully it will happen one day before the whole world disappears.
Yeah.
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 So thank you again for your participation. I'm not going to take more of your time. It's a horrible subject, but it's important to understand.
Yeah.
How the dehumanization of the Palestinians, how it leads to what we even see today. This is the climax of the dehumanization of the Palestinians.
Yeah.
In Gaza today. There's no shame in killing us, unfortunately. On the contrary, it's quite useful. So thank you very much. And I hope we get the chance to talk again.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let's call me.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye.
The Israeli army is being accused of organ theft in Palestine's Gaza. A report by the Euromed Human Rights Monitor expressed concern over allegations that the Israeli army confiscated dozens of dead bodies from Al-Shifa and the Indonesian hospital in northern Gaza. Euromed Monitor says suspicions of organ theft were based on evidence cited by medical professionals in Al-Shifa. This included claims of missing cochleas and corneas, as well as other vital organs like livers, kidneys, and hearts. But the doctors also said that the claims cannot be proven or disproven solely by forensic medical examination, as many of the patients underwent surgery before their death.